Okay, so I ended up making this entire video. It ended up being 45 minutes long, and I decided, you know what, I actually just want this to be like a quick synopsis. That's what I originally had planned. I wanted it to be like, 10, 15 minutes long. But then I got a little bit carried away, a little bit sidetracked. So, anyways, let's start over. So, first things first, what is DS and DST? Or Don't Starve and Don't Starve Together? So, Don't Starve is an uncompromising survival scary game. That's kind of not really scary, not really uncompromising, but it is still a survival game. Um, a lot of people's opinions is it's not as difficult as it was like planned to be, as they added more things as optional content instead of forced upon you, which honestly I think is better for like a game point design, but it has led some of the community to think, oh, but it could have been this much more difficult, which just because you make something more difficult doesn't always make it, more fun. I know there's some people who like a challenge and like trying to figure out ways to fix that challenge, like a puzzle solving, really. Um, but sometimes you do just need the game to be fun and not just difficult, because not everybody finds enjoyment in that. So they kind of switched over to this instead. DS is Don't Starve, you play by yourself, etc., etc. And then they have DST. DST is like the new version. They stopped updating DS in like 2020. They came out with DS in 2014. It came out with DST in 2016. But you see, you might have noticed they stopped updating DS in 2020, but DST came out in 2016. Yes, they were developing both at the same time. The plan was to basically have both of them be the same, I think. But then what ended up happening is a lot of people, once they added DST, stopped playing DS altogether. They even came out with new DLCs for DS, but most people stayed with DST. Eventually, some people did go back and play some of the DS stuff, but most people on DST. DS is considered a finished game now, and now they're only updating DST. DST is still under development, so they're still updating it and everything, which is pretty cool. And on top of that, DST is co-op, hence the T in DST, which allows you to play with other people. Most of the boss and content is actually designed around having two players with it instead of just one. But you can still play by yourself, with most of the health pools of things just being doubled. Yeah, that's basically it. There's also certain things that are just easier to do with multiple people. Like, for instance, the Crab King fight is not designed for one person. And Fuel Weaver, Ancient Fuel Weaver, although is possible to do with one person, is a lot more difficult with one person than it is with two people. So yeah, I guess keep that in mind. A lot of the things is structured to have more than one person, and thus that is kind of like the biggest difference between DS and DST. However, some of the things do benefit from it being supposed to be for more than one person, one of which is being farming. So they buffed farming really nicely from DS to DST, making it very viable to actually get all of your food from farming instead of just, having to go explore and grab food that way. Now, something I should explain is there is different types of, survivors. So there's a couple of survivors you can choose from. As you can see in this cover art, there is 3 that you can choose from. Actually, technically 4, because the guy in the top left is also a playable character. The person in the top right is not one, and probably won't be one. But you never know. Anyways, Yeah, so there's different characters you can play. Most of them have like an upside and a downside. And they're supposed to like coincide to keep them at an average power level. You know, like for instance, I don't know, you can go 2 times as fast, but you also have half as much health. You know, something like that. To kind of like balance it all out. For instance, there's a character who does extra damage, but only when they're about to die, kind of thing. So they do more damage the closer they are to death, which makes you want to stay close to death, but then also reduces your health. Now, every character is supposed to be based off of Wilson, as you can see. He has an average stat block of being 150 health, 150 hunger, and 200 sanity. A lot of characters actually have less sanity than he does, and pretty much no character has higher sanity than him. So actually his sanity is one of the higher ones in game. Now, 150 health, some basic enemies will be able to kill you pretty fast still. If you get hit like 7 times by a spider, you will die. No, you have to get hit 8 times by a spider. So if you get hit 8 times from a spider without any equipment on, you will die. If you get hit 5 times by a hound, you will die. You're pretty fragile with just your stats currently, but you can also get equipment such as football helmets. Football helmets being the easiest and quickest, and every character can make them kind of equipment that you can get. And they give you 80% damage reduction. That is how good equipment is. They're not too difficult to get. Admittedly, they only absorb about 315 damage in total before they break. But they also are completely worth it, since they do prevent you from getting one-shot by everything. A lot of bosses do 75 damage, so a lot of bosses would be able to two-shot you. But with a football helmet, for instance, 80% damage reduction from a football helmet will prevent you from taking like a face load of damage. And instead, you will take very little damage, aka you can take 5 times as many hits, which is quite a lot. So that goes from getting 2-shot from a boss to 10-shot from a boss. And because there is a plenty of ways to heal in this game, it's not that bad, since you can just heal back the health. So yeah, that's kind of how the equipment system works. The hunger system, so you lose 75 hunger each day. So most characters with 150 hunger will start dying from hunger after 2 days of not eating anything. Now, when you lose hunger, you lose health, and you lose like one health every single second that you're hungry for. Each day is 8 minutes, which means you can survive for almost 2.5 days without eating anything. After 2.5 days, you will just be dead from not eating anything. After 2 days, you will start dying from not eating anything, so you get the idea. If you don't have anything in your stomach, you start dying kind of fast. On top of that, sanity, when your sanity hits 0, your sanity hitting 0 won't kill you. It won't make you lose health or anything, but what it will do is it will spawn creatures, and those creatures can kill you. But if you're good at killing the creatures, it's not too big of a problem, and they usually won't affect you if you don't get hit. Now, if you do get hit, you do lose health, and I feel like I don't need to say this, but if your health hits 0, you die. Now, just dying in game, that's usually not it. There is different ways to revive. It's easiest to revive when there's other people, since there is a very cheap, easy way to revive other people called a Telltale Heart that you can revive other people with. Reviving by yourself is a little bit more difficult, but it is still possible. The best way to revive is always going to be a life-giving amulet, allowing you to revive anywhere you want to, and without a health penalty. And you also have higher stats than you would if you revive using a Telltale Heart or a Meat Effigy. Anyways, Telltale Hearts and Meat Effigies give you a health penalty. You can also revive at touchstones, but touchstones you can only revive at once. So that's kind of the downside of touchstones. Now, they did give some characters skill trees. So skill trees are basically extra benefits. You slowly get benefits the more you play with said character. So the more you play with, for instance, this one's Wilson, you get more things for Wilson, and eventually you will have, well, more stuff for Wilson. I don't know what else to tell you. They give you a bunch of perks, I guess. There's different things that they give you, but specifically what I'm going to talk about here is the affinities. If you look on the right side, you can have a shadow affinity or you can have a lunar affinity. What they do is, so they do whatever they say they do as the perk, but they also give you an additional hidden benefit of 10% bonus damage against the opposite alignment and 10% damage reduction against the same alignment, which is really useful, as you can imagine, as just getting 10% extra damage or just 10% defense is good. It's always good. Like, it's always worth taking an affinity if you can have them, but you have to fight final bosses to get them. Now let's quickly talk about the seasons. So we have fall. Fall is the starting season if you change no settings. If you also change no settings, it lasts for 20 days. It is the easiest season to do anything in, as it is, well, no downsides to it. There's also no, like, benefits, but there's also no downsides. It's just plain old simple. You walk around like there's no season at all kind of deal. Now, winter you would think would be more difficult, but it's not really that much more difficult. It lasts 15 days. It's considered a harsh season, but it's really not that bad. Food spoils at half speed, so it's actually pretty easy to keep food. One of the downsides is like trees and, or not trees, saplings and grass don't grow back, which are like basic resources that you need in the game. But if you just stockpile a bunch, you don't need them for like 15 days, it's fine. Food can be a little bit more difficult to get, but once again, it's not that bad. It's fine, especially since they spoil at half speed. Yeah, it's not that bad. If you get cold, just make a campfire, or just like light a tree on fire. Just get some insulation or thermal stone, and the season's pretty easy. Spring is a little bit more annoying, since getting weather gear is a little bit more difficult than just getting like insulation for winter. It also can make you cold if you're too wet, since it does rain a lot in this. It also has lightning. Lightning can light your base on fire, but that's easily prevented with just a lightning rod. On top of that, getting wet will cause things to spoil faster. On top of that, getting wet will reduce your sanity. If you're too wet and your tools become wet inside your inventory, when you try and use them, sometimes they will slip out of your hands, and it's kind of annoying. Personally, I think this is actually a really annoying season, but it's technically considered a mild season, unlike winter. If you don't have any rain protection, then it's basically like Winter 2.0, except you also lose sanity from being too wet. Yeah. It is kind of easy to deal with, though. Just put on a football helmet and a umbrella, and you'll be fine. Now, summer is considered the last harsh season, and summer is kind of, It's a little bit of a doozy. It's considered one of the most annoying seasons because not only does you heat up a lot and you can die from overheating, and trying to cool down is more difficult than trying to warm up, it turns out, because you can just light trees on fire or just set up campfires, but you can't really do that for summer and becoming cold, so it's a little bit more difficult. On top of that, there's less headgear that you can use that's really solid for summertime, unless you have the umbrella, which you can get from defeating the winter seasonal boss. But if you are not good and don't defeat it, or if you're playing with other people and you didn't get it, summer can be a bit of a fun one. On top of that, summer is also just miserable since it makes all of your food spoil 2 times as fast. It also makes plants wilt, which means you can't harvest them, kind of just like winter. Basically, it's like winter on steroids, except it's hot instead of cold. So, yeah, it's basically worse than winter, and that's all I can say about it. Personally, I think spring is more annoying, but a lot of people think summer is more difficult. Now, let's move on to the progression. As you can see, here's all the progression stuff. I'm just kind of going to talk over this. You guys can look at this if you really want to. I'm just going to more or less say that basically how this game, like gameplay loop goes, is you collect resources at the beginning of the game. You do a bunch of stuff, and then you will go to the ruins. The ruins is where you go from early game to mid game. Once you get to the ruins, that's where mid-game really starts opening up. You get a lot of good gear, a lot of good stuff in the ruins, and most of the stuff you get from the ruins will carry you through the rest of the mid-game. The rest of the mid-game is until you get to one of the 2 final bosses, that being Field Weaver, which is the skeleton at the end of the Shadow alignment stuff, or Celestial Champion, which is the giant rock at the end of the lunar path. So pretty much all of the stuff you get from the ruins, you have to go to the ruins to go to either of these paths, and when you go through the ruins to go to either of these paths, you will eclipse the ruins to go to either of these paths, and most of the stuff you'll get from the ruins, once again, will take you through all of that stuff to get to the final boss, and even kill one of the final bosses, and then you unlock the end game. And then you get rifts and stuff, and rifts give you better gear and change up some enemies and stuff. And that is what, like, the end game is. So, yeah, that's kind of like the loop of that. And then I quickly wanted to touch on seasonal bosses, since these will always spawn every single time. Well, kind of. If you're on the mainland, they will always spawn. So you have Badger. Badger's whole thing is he wants to eat food. He doesn't really care about the player too much unless they have honey on them. But then he will eat so much food. Once he eats enough food, he will go sleep. When he goes to sleep, it changes where he will have a new attack, and that a new attack will put you to sleep. Yeah, that's basically his whole thing. You can kill him. He spawns in autumn. He will never spawn in your first autumn, since bosses don't spawn until at least day 30, I believe. So yeah, you won't see him until then. And then you have Deerclops. Deerclops is the winter seasonal boss, so they will only spawn during winter. You can spawn more by sending out hostile flares, that you have to get Glamour and Glamour Goop and stuff, and make flares, but whatever. When you kill it, it drops its eyeball, which is very useful, since it not only gives you 100% rain protection, and it also gives you 240 summer insulation, making it the most versatile thing in game. It also lasts nine whole days, which is quite a while, and it's pretty good. So if you can kill Deoclops, pretty good. Um, there's not much to say about them besides they like smashing buildings and they'll target buildings if you're not actively fighting them. Now, after they destroy 5 buildings, I believe it is, they will go ahead and be happy Deoclops, and they will try and walk off screen. Once they walk off screen, they will just straight up despawn, and you won't be able to fight them. Yeah, so don't let them like smash up your base, because not only would your base be smashed up, but you also won't be able to kill them to be able to get the Deoclops eyeball. Then you have Moose Goose. Moose Goose's whole thing is they want to just like have an egg and raise some children. But then of course the player is like, hey, you mind if I take your feathers? Yeah, that's basically it. They do an okay amount of damage. I think they do 75 a hit, but they're pretty easy to dodge and stuff. Honestly, they're more like a mini boss, if I'm not gonna lie to you. But they kind of have like 2 stages, if you will, because once you kill the mother, the babies will go after you. And as you can see, there's a baby up to the right, and there's an egg. So they will lay an egg. The egg takes a little while before it hatches, or you can manually hatch it using a hammer and break it open. But it will shock you every time you do that, so you do want 100% lightning protection, which the umbrella also gives you 100% lightning protection, so you should definitely get the umbrella. Probably one of the best items you can get in game. One of the best, not the best though. Anyways, then you can also kill. Once you kill the adult, the babies will attack you. You can kill the babies. The babies will give you a bunch of down feathers, and you can use those down feathers for this fantastic couple of crafts. Yeah, that's about it. The babies are more difficult than the mother, honestly. So yeah, be aware of that. Then we have Antlion. Antlion is probably the most complex out of all of them. Basically, the whole goal is they want to eat rocks. Yeah, that's it. So if you go to them and you feed them rocks, they will leave you alone, actually. They also don't move like the other ones at all. They just kind of stay put. But if you don't feed them rocks, they will start making craters underneath your feet, which can destroy structures, and they last for way too long. I think it's like 10 days or something. Point being, you don't want like just a gaping hole in your house. Now, usually it does give you a warning before it happens, so you can usually get out of your base before it happens, but like, if you don't notice or if you're not paying attention or anything, your base will be filled with craters, and it's not very fun. If you feed them rocks, they won't do this. If you kill them, they also won't do this. Now, here's where the boss fight becomes interesting. When you start attacking it and stuff, it will spawn sandcastles around it, which you can destroy the sandcastles, but they do have like 1,000 health or something, so it's not like you can just punch them once and they disappear. And then they will slowly spawn sand spikes inside this arena to target you, and the sand spikes do an okay amount of damage, but more importantly, they block your path. You can also attack the sand spikes. They have less health at like 250, but it is difficult since the longer the fight goes on, the more sand spikes they spawn, and you're more likely to get hit as it impedes your path. Now, they also only spawn in this one biome, so Deoclops and Badger will spawn pretty much anywhere. And freaking Moose Goose will spawn specifically where Moose Goose nests are, which is the ponds with the 5 berry bushes and the 3 carrots around it. And you'll see the little nest thing. They're not too difficult to spot. I think it's like a 50-50 chance to spot on any one of those. So yeah, I guess keep that in mind. So anyways, if you look around, you could see the oasis right up there, where you have the trees with the little lake or pond, whatever it is, and the cactus that are beaver tail cactus. And that's how you know it's the oasis. and that's how you know where to find antlion. And there you go, that is basically all there is to that. Now, because I did take down the video on Buck Chuckets and Piglins episode 3 of why I left, because that one was like a little bit more emotionally driven, I decided to instead take that down and instead change it a little bit so it's a little less emotionally driven, I guess. Well, I mean, it's still kind of emotionally driven, but basically, the reason why I left Buck Chuckets and Piglins is because the server host and I, the server host, he has certain opinions that I really do not agree with, and that I feel are not only offend me, but also I feel like are insufferable. I guess I'll just give more context on this immediately. So basically, the big thing that really like ticked me off was the fact that they basically said that native land acknowledgement is stupid, and that they conquered people, we conquered them, and now they're just crying like pussies, is essentially what he said, that we took their land. But that's not really how it went. Also, there's a lot of reasons why it's bad, and some of them is because of just like atrocities that has happened. And, well, let me put it in perspective of the atrocities. Well, I'm not really going to do that because I don't want to go too much into depth, but I'll give like an example of when you conquer somebody, right? Usually you just basically take out their king and say you're the king now. Maybe change up the religion that they have to follow. You know, now they're Christian instead of Orthodox, or they're instead of Catholic, you have them Orthodox, or if you have them freaking, you change them to Roman Christianity or whatever it is, or evangelicals. You know, you change the religion. Most of Europe is like, you know, most of it is Christianity. So it was a lot of changing Christians, and you know, like the King James Bible. That's usually what it was. It was just, to most of the people, your religion got changed, and maybe some of the rules got changed, and there wasn't really much else that changed. But in the case of like taking over native lands, there's a difference between colonizing and conquering. They didn't conquer the people. Well, technically they did do that, but they also colonized them. So they basically said, hey, not only are we going to do exactly what we do, where we change your religion and we make you pay taxes and everything like that, we also want all of your land. You guys get no land, none at all. All of the good land we get, and we'll go give you this really bad patch of land. And then they slowly pushed them back and said, no, actually, you get that bad patch of land over that way. No, you get that bad patch of land over that way. And were heavily oppressed and killed and etc. I'm not going to go too much into it, but, like, look it up. There is a difference between what happened between, like, European nations and what happened with Native Americans. And the funniest thing is they're Canadian, and I'm pretty sure the atrocities with the Canadians is worse than what we did in the US. Now, just, I guess, I hope you all have a fantastic day. I wanted this video to be like 15 minutes long. I just couldn't seem to, you know, get it 15 minutes long. I always felt like there was something else I could add or should add, etc., etc. But I hope you guys enjoyed. Hopefully it was informational. If you've never heard of Don't Starve Together, maybe I missed out on too much. I mean, I really, like, skimmed it. Like, if you knew already, like, just a little bit, but, I wanted it to be short. It's kind of short, but anyways, have a good day.